It wasn't a sound that woke me, it was the absence of one. The low, familiar rumble of my husband's breathing beside me had stopped. In the blue-gray light of 3 a.m., I saw him sitting up, his back to me, bathed in the sickly white glow of his phone. The silence of his stillness was louder than any alarm. He was just typing, a slow, deliberate tap of his thumb on the glass. Then, a soft whoosh. He laid back down, sighing heavily, and in that exhale I felt the foundation of my entire life turn to sand. He thought I was asleep. I kept my breathing even, a slow rise and fall I had perfected over nights when our daughter was colicky, an imitation of peace. He rolled over, his back to me again, and the phone screen lit up one more time on the nightstand. A name, Henry, and a preview of the text, "I love you 333. My heart didn't break, it vaporized. It simply ceased to exist, leaving a cold, pressurized vacuum in my chest. Henry. My husband wasn't the kind of man to have close male friends, certainly not the "I love you" kind. He was a man of quiet nods and "sounds good." This was wrong. This was a lie so blatant, so clumsy, it was almost insulting. I waited until the sound of his breathing finally deepened again, that familiar rumble returning, but now it sounded like a threat. I slid out of bed, my feet silent on the hardwood, and scooped up his phone. My fingers were shaking so violently I could barely unlock it. The passcode was the same it had been for 10 years, our anniversary. The irony tasted like aluminum. I opened the thread with Henry. The "I love you" was the last message sent by the other person. My husband's reply, the one I'd watched him type, was, "You make everything better, going back to sleep, talk to you tomorrow." I scrolled up and scrolled and scrolled, my vision blurred, the words swimming into a sea of sickening affection. Pet names, shared jokes, plans for a future I was clearly not a part of. Henry wasn't a man. Henry was a woman, and she was, in careful, articulate, and passionate detail, completely in love with my husband. And he, in his own stunted way, was in love with her. I walked into the adjoining bathroom, locking the door with a click so soft it was barely audible. I sank onto the cold tile floor, his phone clutched in my hand, and the first piece of my plan, the first shard of my new, broken reality, slotted into place. I navigated to his settings. I found the iCloud options. I saw messages toggled on. With trembling hands, I went to the old iMac in our home office, the one we used for taxes and storing family photos. I logged into his iCloud account. The password was, of course, the same, our anniversary. A cascade of green and blue bubbles flooded the screen. Every text, every lie, every "I love you" from Henry, every empty promise from him. 8 months ago, that was the night my marriage died. I just hadn't, until that moment, been invited to the funeral. I sat there until the sun came up, a silent pallbearer for my own life, reading an encyclopedia of my own betrayal. The cruelest part of infidelity is that it doesn't just destroy the present, it murders the past. It takes every happy memory, every shared laugh, every "I love you" he ever sent me, and holds it up to the light, revealing the cracks and fakes you were blind to. Our life had been comfortable, that was the word for it. It was a comfortable pair of old shoes, shaped perfectly to our feet, worn in all the right places. We'd been married for 12 years. We had a little house with a porch swing that needed a new coat of paint and a yard that was more weeds than grass, but it was ours. We had our routines. Tuesday was pasta night. Friday was cheap pizza and a rented movie. We'd sit on the sofa, feet tangled together, and argue over whether the plot made sense. He wasn't a bad man, or perhaps I should say I believed he wasn't a bad man. He was quiet, steady. He worked in logistics, a job I never fully understood, full of spreadsheets and shipping containers. He was the kind of man who'd wordlessly get up and make me a cup of tea when he heard me sigh a certain way. He'd fixed the leaky faucet, taught our daughter to ride her bike, and held my hand during my mother's eulogy. He was my anchor, my boring, reliable, predictable anchor, and I had loved him for it. I loved the safety of him. But the man on the iMac screen was not that man. The man in the texts to Henry was different. He was more expressive. He used emoji. He was trying, in his own fumbling way, to be the romantic hero of a story that wasn't ours. And Henry, God Henry, I became a spy in my own home. I learned the rhythms of their affair. They texted all day. He'd be sitting across the dinner table from me, asking me to pass the salt, while his phone buzzed in his pocket with a "thinking of you, my love" from her. He'd go to run errands on a Saturday. I'd watch the iMac screen. "On my way," he'd text her. "I can't wait to see you," she'd reply. He had built a soundproof, invisible wall right down the middle of our life. On his side, he had passion, poetry, and a new, exciting love. On my side, I had pasta night, the leaky faucet which was leaking again, and a shared calendar of dentist appointments. But a strange thing happened as I sat in the dark of my office night after night, a digital ghost haunting their relationship. The tension I felt wasn't just anger, it was something else. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for him to unleash the classic, cruel script of the cheating husband. I waited for him to tell her I was a shrew, a cold, sexless wife who didn't understand him. I braced myself for the texts where he'd complain about me, mock me, use me as the common enemy to bond them closer together. But he never did. He didn't talk about me at all. And then, one day, Henry asked him, "I feel strange sometimes knowing we're in this limbo. How is the separation process going? Is it hard with your ex?" My breath caught. "Ex," he tapped out a reply. "It's just paperwork. It's amicable. We're just different people. We haven't been together in a long time. I don't like to talk about it. I just want to focus on you." He hadn't painted me as a monster. He had simply erased me. He told her he was separated, that I was his ex-wife in progress, that our marriage was already a fossil. He wasn't bad-mouthing me, I realized, for a very specific reason. He knew she was too smart for that. The evil ex-wife is a cliché, a red flag flapping in a hurricane. Henry, I was beginning to learn, was the kind of woman who noticed red flags. My husband, the man I thought was steady and predictable, had crafted the perfect lie. He wasn't the miserable husband trapped with a dragon. He was the sad, divorced man, free and clear, finding new love. He'd made himself the victim, not of me, but of circumstance. And Henry, bless her heart, had believed him. She was dating a single man, a kind, stressed-out man going through a quiet, amicable divorce. I looked at my own reflection in the dark computer screen. I wasn't just a wife, I was a ghost. And the only other person being haunted was Henry, who had no idea the house she was in was already occupied. The accepted narrative for a woman in my position is rage. Blinding, cleansing rage. It's a clean burn. You hate the husband. You loathe the mistress. You picture her as a vacuous, predatory bimbo. You break things. You scream. You burn his clothes on the lawn. It's a script we all know. I tried. I really did. I would sit at my desk reading their plans to meet, and I would try to summon the fire. I'd try to hate her. I'd try to picture this Henry as a cheap homewrecker. But I couldn't. I couldn't hate her because I was getting to know her. And the person I was getting to know was wonderful. The first crack in my manufactured anger came in early December. The affair had been going for nearly 3 months. I was a raw, exposed nerve, existing on coffee and adrenaline. My husband was humming in the shower, getting ready for a supplier dinner. I knew he was going to see her. My iMac dinged. It was a photo from Henry. She had sent him a picture of a long table covered in glitter, red and green cardstock and glue sticks. She was holding up a slightly lopsided, glitter-bombed card of a reindeer. "Henry, look, finished. 120 cards for the residents at Oakwood Gardens. My fingers are numb." Laughing emoji, my husband. "Wow, that's a lot." Henry: "I know, but I was thinking about it, and the holidays can be such a lonely time for them. Especially this year. If one of these stupid, glittery cards makes one person feel remembered for 5 minutes, isn't that worth a little carpal tunnel?" I stared at the text. I stared at the goofy, earnest card. I thought about the residents at Oakwood Gardens, the big brick building on the other side of town. My husband, predictably, sent back a thumbs-up emoji. Henry's response to that was telling. "Henry, you're a man of few words tonight, aren't you?" Smiley face. "That's okay. I know you're stressed about that shipping manifest. Just breathe, you've got this. I'll see you soon and I'll rub your shoulders." 3. I put my head down on the desk. My shoulders, which were perpetually knotted up to my ears, ached in phantom sympathy. Here was this woman, this Henry, spending her free time making 120 cards for strangers in a nursing home because they might be lonely. She was kind, she was empathetic, and she was dating my husband, who responded to her profound, active kindness with a single blue thumb. The crack widened. She wasn't just kind, she was smart. Deeply, fascinatingly smart. My husband's primary interest outside of his affair was a show called The Deadliest Catch. He loved it. I found it repetitive and stressful. He'd try to talk to me about it, and I'd nod and say, "Oh, wow," while scrolling through my phone. One night, he texted Henry complaining about his day. "My husband, everything is a mess. Feel like the whole system is sinking." Henry: "Sinking? That's a dark metaphor, my love. Speaking of, I was reading about that ship from your show. The F/V destination. Did you know what really happened?" And then, she was off. For the next 45 minutes, Henry sent him a series of long, beautifully written, meticulously researched texts explaining the complex cascade of failures that led to the ship sinking in 2017. She talked about stability factors, the danger of crab pots icing over, the lack of proper safety metrics, and the way the vessel's design was ill-suited for the weight distribution. It wasn't just facts, it was a story. It was a YouTube deep dive in text form, written with passion and clarity. Henry, and it's just so tragic because it was preventable. But the best part, if there is one, is that the investigation was taken so seriously. It led to stricter rules about safety regulations for the whole fleet. It's horrible that it took a tragedy, but at least those men didn't die for nothing. It meant something. It's keeping other fishermen safer today. I sat back, stunned. It was fascinating. I found myself engrossed, learning about maritime law and engineering from my husband's mistress. My husband's reply, my husband, huh, crazy, I didn't know that. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated pity. Not for me, for her. She was pouring her brilliant, curious, passionate heart into a black hole. She was giving a 5-course meal to a man who only knew how to order a cheeseburger. I loved her. In that moment, sitting in the dark, I truly, deeply loved her. I loved her mind. I loved her heart. I loved her glittery, goofy cards and her passion for maritime safety. And a new, colder realization set in. My loser of a husband didn't deserve to even breathe in her direction. He didn't deserve me either, but this was different. I was his wife. I had signed up for the worse for better or worse. She had been sold a lie. She was an innocent, lured into a trap, and the bait was a version of my husband that didn't even exist. The anger I'd been trying to find finally came, but it wasn't for me. It was for her. The human heart is not a delicate thing. It's a tough, stubborn muscle. It can keep beating when it's broken, when it's betrayed, when it's been hollowed out and used as a motel by a lying coward. For 8 months, my heart kept beating, thump, a rhythm of survival. I went to work, I packed lunches, I paid the water bill, I smiled at the neighbors. And every night I descended into the digital underworld of my husband's other life. I watched him lie to 2 different women, balancing his polite, domestic life with me against his passionate, fraudulent life with her. I was breaking, but it wasn't a snap, it was erosion. I was a coastline, and every text message was a wave pulling a little more of me out to sea. The breaking point didn't come with a scream, it came with a poem. It was a Tuesday. Pasta night, he was sitting across from me, swirling spaghetti on a fork, telling me a boring story about a guy named Bill in accounting. His phone, which he'd foolishly left on the counter, lit up. The iMac in the office, which I'd left perpetually logged in, lit up at the same time. I heard the ding from the other room. He didn't. I excused myself to use the restroom. I walked down the hall, my feet padding softly, and stood in the doorway of the office. It was a text from Henry, a little poem. Henry, the wind outside is cold tonight / but I am warm, you see / I built a house of all the thoughts / you think when you think of me. It was cheesy. It was earnest. It was the kind of thing you write when you are so full of love you're literally bursting with it. It was so, Henry. I looked at the glowing screen. I looked down the hall at my husband, who was now scraping the last of his pasta from his bowl, his face illuminated by the local news on the small kitchen TV. He was oblivious, he was a void. This incredible, bright, soulful woman was sending him poetry, and he was eating pasta. I walked back to the kitchen, my body feeling heavy as if I were moving through water. I sat down. "Everything okay?" he asked, not looking up. "No," I said, the word hung in the air, alien and sharp. He finally looked up, his fork halfway to his mouth. What's wrong?" I stared at him. I really stared. I tried to find the man I married. I tried to find the man who held my hand at my mother's funeral. I tried even to find the charming, attentive man who was seducing Henry. I saw nothing. Just a tired, slightly confused man with tomato sauce on his chin. "I know," I said, my voice was a stranger's. "You know what? That the faucet's leaking again. I'll get to it this weekend, I promise. I know about Henry." The fork clattered against the ceramic plate. The color drained from his face, not in a cinematic flush, but in a sickly, gray draining, leaving his skin looking like old paper. "What?" he whispered. "Henry," I repeated. The "I love you 333, the photos of the nursing home cards, the fascinating deep dive on the F/V destination, the little poems. His mouth opened and closed. He looked for a second like one of the fish in his stupid show, gasping on the deck. "How? You're logged into the iMac. You have been for 8 months. I've read everything." I thought I would feel powerful. I thought I would feel the righteous fury of the wronged wife. I didn't. I just felt tired. I felt profoundly, bone-deeply weary. He didn't deny it. He didn't yell. He didn't do anything. He just put his head in his hands, his shoulders starting to shake. He was crying, but they weren't the tears of remorse. They were the tears of a little boy who'd been caught. He was crying because he'd been found out. "I've been putting this off," I said, my voice flat. "I've been dreading this. I need to confront you. I need to tell you that I want a divorce." "No," he choked out, his voice muffled by his hands. "No, please, it didn't mean anything. It was just a mistake, a mistake." I almost laughed. 8 months of daily I love yous and planning a future is not a mistake. It's a choice. It's a second, secret life. And the worst part, the truly pathetic part, is that you're not even good at it. You don't deserve her. You don't deserve her brilliant, kind, empathetic soul. She sends you poetry and you send her a thumbs up. She deserves the entire world, and you can barely manage to be present at a dinner table. He looked up at me, his eyes red and pleading. "I'll end it right now. I'll tell her. I'll do anything." And that's when the final piece of my dread clicked into place. I looked at this weak, crumbling man, and I knew with absolute certainty that he was telling another lie. "No, you won't," I said. "You wouldn't be man enough to face her. You'd ghost her, or you'd tell her I found out and I'm the crazy wife forcing you to choose. You'd make me the villain. You'd break her heart and leave her with nothing but shame." I stood up, my own plate of cold pasta untouched. "So I'm going to have to do it," I said, the weight of it settling on me. "It's up to me to tell her the truth. You've made me the one who has to go and break that sweet woman's heart, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to be the one who makes her cry." I left him there, weeping into his spaghetti. I went to the office. I was still shaking, but the erosion was over. The cliff face had fallen. I was something new now, something sharp and clear. I opened the text thread. I looked at the last message from Henry, her little poem. Then I started to type, not to my husband, to her. The twist wasn't the affair. The twist wasn't the lie he told her about our separation. The twist, the secret that had been growing in my chest for 8 months, was that my primary goal was no longer to divorce my husband. It was to save her. My entire world had inverted. The other woman wasn't my enemy, she was the second victim. My husband wasn't the man I loved, he was the villain in both our stories. He was a black hole, and he was pulling a brilliant, shining star into his orbit, and I was the only one who could see the event horizon. I sat at the iMac. The cursor on the Messages app blinked. Blink, blink, blink. I had his phone. I had his entire digital life in my hands. I could have ended it for him. I could have typed, "I'm a married man, it's over." But that would have been his move, cowardly, ambiguous. It would have left her shattered and confused, wondering what she did wrong. It would have left her ashamed. And that, I realized, was the one thing I could not let happen. I don't want her to feel embarrassed or ashamed for something that was done to her and not because of her. That thought, which had been a whisper, was now a roar. This wasn't about revenge on him. This was about rescue for her. I couldn't text her from his phone. That was his voice. She needed to hear mine. But how? I didn't have her number. I only knew her as Henry in his contacts. I scrolled through his contact list. Henry was listed with a number, but there was no address, no last name. I went back to their text thread. I scrolled back through months of conversations, searching. I remembered her mentioning her work. She was a research librarian. She'd complained once about the ancient database system at the downtown branch. The downtown branch. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I opened a browser. Downtown Public Library research staff. There was a staff directory. I scanned the names. None of them were Henry. I scrolled through their texts again, my mind racing. What did I know about her? She made cards for nursing homes. She loved maritime history. She wrote poetry. Wait, I went back to a text from 6 months ago. "My husband, how was your weekend?" "Henry, so good. My paper on 18th century tidal mapping was accepted for the Pacific Maritime Journal. I'm so excited I could scream." Star emoji. I typed Pacific Maritime Journal 18th century tidal mapping into Google. The first hit was a PDF of a recent journal index, and there it was, a paper title and a name. Her name wasn't Henry, her name was Alice. Alice, it was a beautiful name, a strong, intelligent, classic name. It suited her. I found her. In a few more clicks, I had her professional blog, which linked to her personal but public Instagram account. I scrolled through it. There she was. Pictures of old maps, pictures of her cat, a fluffy orange tabby, a picture of her holding up the stack of 120 glittery holiday cards, a proud, beautiful smile on her face. She was real. She wasn't just Henry. She was Alice, and she was lovely. My husband at this point had stumbled into the office. His face was a wreck of snot and tears. "What are you doing? Please don't." "Don't? I'm finding her," I said, my voice cold. I didn't look at him. "Don't," he begged, grabbing my arm. "You'll ruin her. She's fragile," I snapped. I turned in the chair so fast he recoiled. "She's fragile." "You think she's fragile? That woman is a pillar of fire. She is brilliant and kind, and she is wasting her entire heart on a fraud. You think I'm going to ruin her? You are ruining her. You are ruining me. You have infected 2 innocent lives with your weakness." "I'll tell her," he cried. "I'll tell her I'm married. Just let me do it." "No," I said, standing up. "You don't get to control this anymore. You don't get to write this ending. You've lied to her for 8 months. You've lied to me for longer. Your words mean nothing. She needs to see the proof. She deserves the truth, not your cowardly, self-serving version of it." I grabbed my car keys. "Where are you going?" he whispered, his voice cracking in panic. "I'm not going to text her," I said. "I'm not going to call her. This isn't news you deliver in a blue bubble. This is a detonation. And I'm going to be there to help her find the pieces." I knew where she lived. She texted him her address months ago, giddy about a new apartment she just moved into, so close to the park. I walked out of the house. I left him standing in the office, surrounded by the glowing blue evidence of his betrayal. For the first time in 8 months, I wasn't shaking. I was solid. The drive to her apartment was 20 minutes. It was the longest 20 minutes of my life. My mind was a blizzard of scenarios. Would she slam the door in my face? Would she think I was a crazy ex-wife, just as he'd feared? Would she collapse? The word revenge implies a desire to harm. I had no desire to harm her. My revenge was aimed squarely at my husband, and the most potent weapon I had was the truth. The only way to liberate both myself and Alice was to burn the entire, elaborate lie to the ground. I parked in front of her building. It was a nice, clean-looking brick walk-up with flower boxes in the windows. I buzzed the number she'd texted him. "Hello," her voice was clear and bright through the intercom. My breath hitched. "Is this Alice?" There was a pause. "Yes, who is this?" "My name," I said, my voice trembling just once, "I am." "I'm your boyfriend's wife." Silence. A dead, heavy, electric silence. I thought she'd hung up. I was about to press the buzzer again when a different metallic click sounded. The lobby door buzzed open. I pushed it and walked into a small, sterile hallway. Her apartment was 2 billion. I walked up the single flight of stairs, my footsteps echoing. Her door was already open a crack. She was standing in the doorway. She was just as lovely as her photos. She was wearing glasses and a gray cardigan, and her eyes were wide with a terrible, dawning confusion. "You're what?" she whispered. "I am his wife," I said gently. "We are not separated. We are not divorcing, we live together. He ate pasta at our kitchen table an hour ago." Alice just stared at me. She didn't cry, she didn't move, she just stared. "He told me." She started, her voice barely audible. "I know what he told you," I said. "He told you he was separated. He told you it was amicable. He told you I was his ex. It's a lie, all of it." "No," she said, shaking her head, a tiny, jerky movement. "No, he wouldn't. You're lying." It was the desperate denial of a mind trying to protect itself. "I wish I were," I said. I held up my phone I had in the car, screenshotted everything. I'd emailed them to myself. "I have proof. I'm so sorry, Alice. I'm so sorry to be the one to do this." I didn't push past her. I just stood in the hall. "May I show you? You deserve to see." She stepped back, a wooden, automatic movement, letting me into her apartment. It was just as I'd imagined. Bookshelves crammed to bursting, a fluffy orange cat that chirped at me from the sofa, a craft table in the corner covered in paper. It smelled like tea and old books. I sat on her sofa, the cat instantly jumping into my lap and purring, and I handed her my phone. She sat opposite me in a worn armchair and she began to read. I didn't show her her texts. I showed her mine. I showed her the texts he sent me. "On my way home, honey, need anything?" Sent 10 minutes after he'd texted her leaving the office, "My love." "Happy Anniversary 3" he'd sent me just 2 months ago with a flower emoji. I showed her a photo from my phone's camera roll. It was from last weekend, a family trip to the pumpkin patch. Him, me, our daughter, all 3 of us, grinning, holding up a giant pumpkin. His arm was around my waist. That was the one. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor. The sound she made was not a cry, it was a gasp, a hollow "oh," as if all the air in her body had been punched out. She whispered. "He has a daughter?" "Yes," I said softly. And then she broke. She put her face in her hands and she sobbed. It was a devastating, silent, full-body earthquake of a sob. The cat fled my lap and went to her, rubbing against her ankles, mewing in distress. I moved from the sofa to the floor in front of her. I didn't touch her, I just waited. "I'm so sorry," I whispered over and over. "I'm so sorry he did this to you." After a long time, her sobs quieted. She lifted her head, her face blotchy, her glasses askew. Henry, he called me Henry in his phone. I nodded. "I'm so sorry." A strange, watery, hysterical laugh bubbled out of her. "Henry, he said it was his grandfather's name, that he liked it. God, I'm so stupid." "No," I said, my voice fierce, finally reaching out and putting my hand on her knee. "You are not stupid, you are smart, and you are kind, and you are wonderful. You are not stupid. You were lied to, you were manipulated. This is not your fault. None of this is on you. This is on him." "This is all on him." She looked at me, her eyes clearing. "Why are you here? Why are you, of all people, being kind to me?" "Because," I said, my own tears finally coming, "I've been reading your texts for 8 months. I know you, Alice. I know about the nursing home cards. I know about the F/V destination. I know you write him poems, and I know you're the best person he has ever known, and he doesn't deserve you. I couldn't let him be the one to tell you. I couldn't let him break your heart and make you feel ashamed." She took a shuddering breath. She looked at me, really looked at me, and in her eyes I saw not an enemy, but an ally. She picked up her own phone from the coffee table. Her hands were shaking, but her movements were deliberate. She opened her texts. She found his contact. She typed, "I know you're married. I know about your wife. I know about your daughter. Do not ever contact me again." She blocked his number. Then she blocked him on every social media platform she had. "That's it," she whispered. "That's it," I agreed. The poetic justice, the revenge, wasn't a firestorm. It was 2 women in a quiet, book-filled apartment deleting one small, pathetic man from their lives with a few taps of a screen. He wasn't just divorced. He wasn't just dumped. He was erased. I drove home in silence. The house was dark. His car was gone. I walked inside, and the silence I'd felt that night 8 months ago was back, but this time it wasn't threatening. It was clean. On the kitchen counter was a piece of paper, a sheet torn from a legal pad. "I'm sorry, I've gone to my brother's." It was the most honest thing he'd said in almost a year. I sat at the kitchen table, the one where he'd sat just hours before. I looked at his abandoned, sauce-smeared plate. I picked it up, scraped the cold pasta into the garbage, and put the plate in the dishwasher. The domesticity of the act felt grounding. My world had detonated, but the dishes still needed to be done. I didn't hear from him for 3 days. When I did, it was a text. "Can I come get my things?" "I'll have them packed," I replied. "Leave the key." The divorce was, as he'd ironically predicted to Alice, amicable, not because we were friends, but because he was so thoroughly beaten. He had no leverage. He had no fight. He had lost his wife and his mistress in the span of 1 hour, all through his own cowardly actions. He gave me the house, the car, and full custody. He was a ghost, haunting his brother's guest room, a man defined only by his logistics spreadsheets. But this story isn't about him. He is a void. This story is about me, and it's about Alice. We texted cautiously at first. "Me, are you doing okay? This is," I typed the wife and deleted it. "This is me. Alice, I'm a wreck. But I'm a clear-eyed wreck. Thank you. You did something impossibly hard, and you were so kind. Me, you deserve the truth. You deserve so much more than what he gave you." We met for coffee a week later. It was awkward for the first 5 minutes. We were 2 people bound by a betrayal, a wound we shared. But then she asked me about my work. I asked her about the library. I told her I'd read her summary of the F/V destination, and she lit up, launching into an excited, brilliant explanation of a new map she'd found. I watched her, this vibrant, intelligent woman, and I felt nothing but a profound sense of rightness. The shitstorm was a shitstorm. Divorce is ugly. Dividing a life is like surgery without anesthesia. My daughter cried, I cried, I'm sure he cried, but through it all I had this strange, secret anchor. Alice and I had coffee every Friday. We talked about books, we talked about her terrible online dating experiences, we talked about my daughter, we talked about everything except him. He became the he who must not be named of our friendship, not out of trauma, but out of sheer, profound irrelevance. It's been a year. My house is no longer a silent battlefield, it's just a home. The porch swing is painted a bright, ridiculous yellow. Alice is over often. She's teaching my daughter how to make glittery, ridiculous cards. Last week we were sitting on that swing, drinking tea. It's still strange sometimes, she said quietly, looking out at the yard. How we met, how I loved a man who didn't exist. And I said, was married to a man I didn't know. She smiled, a real bright smile. We're a hell of a pair, aren't we? We are, I said. I had dreaded that upcoming shitstorm. I had dreaded being the one to make her cry. But I know now that's not what I did. I didn't make her cry. I was just the one holding her hand while she cried. I didn't break her heart. I showed her where it had already been broken so she could start to heal. My husband didn't just have an affair. He accidentally introduced me to one of the best friends I've ever had. I lost a cheating boyfriend, she'd said. I hope she knows she'll have a friend in me. That's what I'd thought all those months ago. She does, and I in return have her. Betrayal is a poison. It's meant to isolate, to fill you with shame and rage. But the true moral, the ultimate poetic justice, is that if you're brave enough to face the truth, the poison can be the very thing that reveals the antidote. He tried to ruin 2 lives, but instead, he just forged an unbreakable bond.